My mum is brilliant, and she's got the gift of hospitality. Now, what that means is, if anyone turns up at her house, she knows how to look after them. I always knew as a kid that if ever any of my friends needed something to eat, they could come to my house, because my mum had this ability to make food last forever. She had this ability to feed as many people as was needed and then some. Now, obviously that was because me and my dad eat quite a lot, but we also knew that she could feed an army if she had to. She would open the fridge, she would pull out the ingredients, and she would be able to have enough leftovers for tomorrow, but also to take food to other people. I once took my friend James home, and let's just say James could eat a lot. And my mum just kept the food coming. There was so much of it. But I think even my mum would struggle to feed 5,000 people like Jesus did. One day, Jesus was teaching a crowd of 5,000 people. As the sun was setting, he told his disciples to feed the crowd. "We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they told him. "That's not nearly enough to feed so many people." Jesus gave thanks to God for the food, and then broke the bread and had the disciples hand it out to all the people. The entire crowd ate until they were all full. Then the disciples gathered up the food that didn't get eaten, and the leftovers filled up 12 baskets. People came from all over to see Jesus. Now, whether they weren't planning on stopping for long, or they just forgot their packed lunches, Jesus noticed that they were all getting hungry. And he says to his disciples, we need to do something to feed all of these people. And depending on which gospel you read, depends on where it comes from. But the disciples end up with these 5 loaves and 2 fish. Whether it was from their own lunches, or whether it was the packed lunch of the little boy who came to watch and to see what was going on, and heard Jesus asking if anyone had any food, and he offered his packed lunch. We don't really know. But what happens is, Jesus takes a little bit, and he prays and he thanks God for what he's been given, and he multiplies it, so much so that he feeds not only 5,000 people, but there are 12 basketfuls left over at the end. And that got me wondering, when we're listening to Jesus teaching, where we hear him saying about all these ways that we should be helping other people, all these things that we could do to make other people's lives a bit easier, what do we have to offer? What if we were like the little boy? We weren't disciples, we weren't important people who everyone looked up to, who thought they had all the answers. But all we have is who we are. And all we have is our packed lunch. Or all we have is our pocket money. Or all we have is our ability to sing. Or maybe all we can do is smile and cheer people up that way. I wonder, what would it look like for us to turn around to Jesus and say, "Here, Jesus, this is what I have. Can I use this to help your kingdom grow? Could you use this to make other people's lives better? Could you use this to do your teaching?" And I think Jesus would probably look at us and he would smile and he would say thank you and he would give thanks to God. And he would take our offering, take what we're willing to give and multiply it so many times to help so many people. We're going to do a craft that thinks about how things get multiplied. And so for today's craft, what you're going to need is a pair of scissors, a pen, and a piece of A4 paper. Starting with it horizontal in the landscape position, you're going to fold it in half so that you end up with a long, thin rectangle. Once you've done that, you're going to fold it in half again down the middle, so it looks a little bit squarer, and then a third time you're going to fold it in half the same way. Once you've done all your folding, you should end up with a little booklet type thing. Now you'll notice that one end only has open edges. It's important to make sure you know which end that is, because that end is going to be the mouth of your fish. So you're going to draw a fish with your mouth at that end, making sure you go right the way to the edges on the rest of the piece of paper, because hopefully we're not going to cut through any of the folds and make it fall to pieces. So mine's very simple because I am not very good at drawing. But once you've drawn it, take your scissors and cut along those lines, making sure that there's still some fish attached to the edges on every side except for your mouth. I mean, your mouth, can have more of an edge to it, but that one's less important. Once you've cut it all out, put all the bits to one side, and you'll be able to open it up. And no longer do you just have one fish, but your fish have multiplied, and you have 8 fish. So next I want you to put your template in front of you, and each fish I want you to give it a character, to design it, to colour it in, to make it look like its own little fish. Please forgive my artistic ability because it's not very good. I'm sure when you show me yours, they'll be absolutely brilliant. And when you've done all 8 of your fish, I want you to turn your piece of paper over. And on the other side of your fish, I want you to see if you can come up with 8 things that you have. 8 things that if Jesus said to you, what have you got that I can use to help other people? What could you put? So I've put singing, I've put my smile, I've put my time, and I've put my money. But there are all sorts of things that we can bring to God, and He is ready and willing to take them and to multiply them and to use them to help other people. Remember, the boy had 5 loaves and 2 fish. He brought them to Jesus, and Jesus said, that's great. I'm going to use that and multiply it to feed loads of people. No matter who we are, what we have to bring, Jesus will multiply to serve His people and His kingdom. Amen.